Hey, Commanders fans, get ready, because today we have exclusive news about our team, and you can't miss a single detail. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel, activate the bell to receive everything firsthand, and of course, leave a like to strengthen our fan base and show that we only have true fans here. Our commitment is to always bring you the latest updates, news, and everything that happens behind the scenes of Commanders. So without further ado, let's check out today's news.
Jayden Daniels is flirting with disaster as the Commanders continue to lose. Something needs to change. The Washington Commanders have officially been eliminated from playoff contention. The crushing defeat to the Minnesota Vikings has made the postseason unreachable for the team. It's the painful culmination of a brutally disappointing campaign. In the loss, star quarterback Jayden Daniels suffered yet another elbow injury. The young quarterback has struggled to stay healthy this season, and his frequent absences have been a major reason for the team's disappointing year. The injury doesn't appear to be too serious, as the LSU graduate is expected to return next week. Still, it's another sign of a growing problem in Daniels' game. The sophomore hasn't learned to protect himself, and this is leading to the franchise's shortcomings. Something needs to change quickly, or this pattern could affect more than just this season. Jayden Daniels' reckless play could continue to cause problems for the Commanders. Throughout this season, most of the blame for Daniels' health problems has been placed on the coaching staff. Certainly, there's some reason for that criticism. When your star player is constantly getting injured, it makes sense to adjust the game plan to better protect him. Cliff Kingsbury could make small changes, such as keeping the tight ends in pass protection or limiting the quarterback's planned runs. It wouldn't make sense to completely eliminate one of Daniels' biggest assets from the game plan, but small changes could go a long way in keeping him on the field. But these problems aren't entirely the coaching staff's fault. Daniels also has his share of responsibility. He's demonstrated some reckless tendencies this season, resulting in unnecessary penalties. For example, he frequently lowers his shoulder or dives headfirst at the end of runs instead of sliding. He runs with the ball so often that these small mistakes could cost him years of his career. It's easy to celebrate when he fights for a few extra yards, but these plays put him at risk. In the loss to the Vikings, he tried to reach a defender after suffering an interception, took a hard hit, and fell on his arm. As some experts have pointed out, Daniels needs to learn to protect himself to ensure the longevity of his career. If he doesn't change his habits quickly, it could prevent the Commanders from reaching their full potential.
Washington Commanders confirmed brutal news about three-time Pro Bowl selection. The Washington Commanders confirmed the worst-case scenario for veteran tight end Zach Ertz a day after their humiliating 31-0 loss to the Minnesota Vikings in Week 14. The three-time Pro Bowl selection is out for the remainder of the season due to a torn ACL. Commanders veteran tight end Zach Ertz has, in fact, suffered a torn ACL, as confirmed by MRI, wrote Ian Rappaport of NFL Network on his official account on Monday, December 8th. A brutal, season-ending injury for the 35-year-old. Coach Dan Quinn speculated after the game that it was likely an ACL tear, which doesn't exactly make him a medical expert. Anyone watching the game could see that there was significant structural damage after Viking safety Jay Ward's low and illegal hit on Ertz, which appeared to twist his leg the wrong way. Commanders coach Dan Quinn has confirmed that tight end Zach Ertz suffered a season-ending injury in yesterday's game. We wish number 86 a full recovery. Ertz, 35, is in his second season with the Commanders and was the team's second best with 50 receptions for 504 yards and 4 touchdowns. Dirty hit caused catastrophic injury to Ertz. Ertz's injury occurred when Ward ducked and struck Ertz in the upper part of his right knee as he attempted to catch a pass, a play that could result in a fine or even suspension for Ward. That was a dirty play by Jay Ward that left Zach Ertz down on the field, needing medical assistance to get off, wrote Commanders reporter Chad Ryan on X. There's no place for that on a football field. Disgusting play. With the loss, the Commanders fell to 3-10, suffering their 8th consecutive defeat. Washington quarterback Jayden Daniels was also taken out of the game after suffering a left arm injury in the second half. Quinn said this was just a precautionary measure, as the Commanders were losing by a large margin when he was able to return. Possible last game for Ertz in the NFL. If Ertz has already played his last game in the NFL, he can say he hasn't accomplished much, since the Philadelphia Eagles selected him in the second round, 35th overall pick of the 2012 NFL Draft, coming from Stanford.
Terry McLaurin destroyed absurd narratives with the one piece nobody noticed. Never say Terry McLaurin doesn't care. The Washington Commanders suffered another loss, and this may have been the team's worst performance of the entire season. But at least one player gave his all on the field. Cliff Kingsbury's offense failed to score and committed 3 turnovers. Jayden Daniels showed instability on his return and aggravated his elbow injury after an interception in the third quarter. He was replaced by Marcus Mariota shortly after, and Coach Dan Quinn stated after the game that it was a precautionary measure. In any case, it was a disastrous afternoon, not to mention Zach Ertz's season-ending injury. Perhaps there was only one bright spot in Washington's total collapse against the Minnesota Vikings, and it occurred on the same play where Daniels had his pass intercepted by edge rusher Andrew Van Ginkel. That would be wide receiver Terry McLaurin's decisive play to prevent a Minnesota touchdown. Commanders fans can forget the narrative that Terry McLaurin isn't a team player. McLaurin only had 3 receptions for 41 yards in the Commanders' loss, which says much more about the inability to pass the ball to him, or any other player, than about his own performance. But it was one defensive play that defined his afternoon. That was pure grit. McLaurin came out at least 5 yards behind Van Ginkel to chase him down at the 30-yard line, preventing his clear path to an interception returned for a touchdown. Although ultimately irrelevant, his efforts saved Washington from scoring 4 points, as the Vikings settled for a field goal on the drive. Still, it demonstrates how much McLaurin cares. He missed most of the 2025 season due to a quadriceps or hip flexor injury, but since his return on Sunday Night Football in Week 13, he has reminded Washington how valuable his presence is. Not bad for a player who has faced accusations of selfishness from Commanders fans throughout the preseason and most of this year. McLaurin spent much of last summer away from the Commanders while dealing with a contract dispute, which was strictly professional. This may have negatively impacted his fitness early in the year, but it would be an exaggeration to claim it was the cause of his injury. Meanwhile, he continued to fully support his teammates during his absence, awaiting his chance to make an impact again. The Commanders continued to search for answers, but McLaurin remains the least of their problems. He is the very definition of a leader.